How you doing, my friends? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Jovenshire's channel. I am the Jovenshire. This is my channel where we cover all things movies, news, gaming, just all things geekery. So if you're new to the channel and you like what you see today, please hit that subscribe button because I think you're gonna like it. And today we are talking about how we were lied to about the Avengers Infinity War movie. I'm gonna get into the juicy details of what the directors told us we should expect from this movie and how it was very different, and my overall opinions of Avengers Infinity War. Because you guys have been asking, I didn't want to do a full-on review. There were some things I wanted to touch on. And finally, we are gonna talk about how this movie might have made the same mistake that Star Wars: The Last Jedi did. Now, I do want to start off by saying that I loved this movie. Now, first of all, this movie is 10 years in the making. 10 years of different movies intertwining, and I just want to take a moment to really appreciate the magic that is. That took so much work from so many different people, and congratulations to Disney, to Marvel, to Paul Feige for making that happen, because that's just impressive. But what really sold me on the magic of this movie was the same thing that made the first Avengers great. Now, the first Avengers had a bunch of movies that led into it. We had our Iron Man movies, you had an Incredible Hulk movie, kind of. You had Thor, you had Captain America, and finally they were all coming together for one movie. And we got to see all those characters for the first time interacting with each other. In Avengers Age of Ultron, you didn't really get that. It was nice to see everyone back together again, and yeah, there were some new characters, but they weren't really built up leading into the movie. It was just a lot of what we loved from the first one. But Avengers Infinity War was the first time in a long time where we got to see a bunch of characters interact together in a way that we've never seen before. The interactions between Tony Stark and Doctor Strange were amazing. Their character conflicts and how they clashed was brilliant. Having Thor interact with Rocket Raccoon, the whole conversation about the rabbit and the captain, it was brilliant. Having the Guardians interact with characters that they've never seen before, that's what made this movie so special. That was my take on the movie. Now that concludes the spoiler-free aspect of this video. I did want to wait an entire week to make sure that people had the chance to see it. And based on the box office numbers, a lot of people saw this movie, which is fantastic. But now we're gonna get into some spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen it, watch this video afterwards or come back and watch it a second time later. I'd really appreciate that because we're gonna be talking about some stuff that I think you're gonna wanna hear, and I want you in on the discussion. So click away! Before we get into how this movie made the same mistake as Star Wars: The Last Jedi, I wanna talk about how we were lied to when it comes to the Avengers Infinity War movie. In an old interview, two things really stood out to me from the Russo brothers who directed this movie. One, them saying that the Avengers that we saw in the third Avengers movie and the fourth Avengers movie are gonna be totally different. Currently, as we've seen the ending to be, that makes a lot of sense. The Avenger team is gonna be a lot different, but also not that different because the people currently still alive, and I say that in quotations for a reason, we'll get to that soon, is that the people still alive are the ones that were in the original Avengers movies. So technically, the Avenger team is as we know it, but things will change, and I'm sure that statement is true, that the people that we see in Avengers 4 will be a completely different Avengers team. The thing that they lied to us, and I feel so stupid for believing, is this movie used to be titled Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. And then they changed it. They're like, no. This movie is gonna be two separate stories. There's gonna be Avengers Infinity War and Avengers 4, which we don't have a title for because it's gonna spoil too much. When I was watching Avengers, they're saying that this is gonna be a standalone story. And I'm like, all right, cool. He's got all the gems. How are we gonna deal with it? Oh, maybe they are gonna end him. Oh, great, they're gonna beat Thanos. Oh, they didn't beat Thanos. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, so how are they gonna wrap up this story and make it a standalone? You know, and now it's not a standalone story anymore. Or maybe they think it's a standalone story. I felt lied to. I didn't want a cliffhanger. Now, albeit we don't have to wait 3 years for another movie, but still, that was a cliffhanger if ever there's ever been a cliffhanger. Actually, the only other cliffhanger I think would be almost as big was in Star Wars Episode 7 when Luke Skywalker doesn't say anything. But even then, not half of the Star Wars galaxy died, and then you're wondering like, what about Spider-Man Homecoming 2? Speaking of which, that is the one thing I would have changed about Infinity War is I wouldn't have had Black Panther and I wouldn't have had Spider-Man disappear. Even though Peter Parker's moment was so real and so good, I think we could have made that moment with someone else. And I say this because we know that we're getting Black Panther 2 and we know that we're getting Spider-Man Homecoming 2, so that immediately starts all of the theories about how they're gonna go back in time and fix it, or they're inside the soul gem, or they're in an alternate dimension, and that's the story we're gonna now follow. It just gives us a bunch of theories that we now need to start to think about. Whereas if you would have kept those two characters alive, you would have been like, oh yeah, no, that's right. We've got those two movies coming up, so yeah, they had to survive. Now, I know that I complain about this, but you know Marvel has been planning this for 10 years, and you know that they thought about the next step. So whatever happened is happening on purpose, and it's all supposed to go the way it is. It's probably the most thought out storyline ever to ever happen, to ever be in anyone's consciousness of all time. But that being said, I go back to it and I felt lied to. I felt like this was a two-parter movie, and even though the next movie might feel like a standalone movie, it left me on a cliffhanger that I did not want. But do you guys think you were cheated out of this? Did you think it was a standalone story? Do you think we'll get a standalone story in the second part? But before we end this video, I do want to now talk about how this movie, I think, is going to make the same mistake Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi made. Everyone had so many questions about Rey when it came to the new Star Wars movies. Like, who's Rey's parents? Who's Rey related to? Well, actually, people just had a lot of questions about Rey. Oh, and you know, Snoke. What about Snoke? What about Snoke? And people had so many fan theories that when Episode 8 came out and they said, hey, here's our story, people were like, what? This doesn't line up to all of my fan theories I made in YouTube videos. I hate this movie now. Not my Luke Skywalker. No, that was a 2-year period. This is a 1-year period of people having time to make their own theories and what's gonna happen. But we've seen now that people get so dedicated to what they think is gonna happen and then subscribe and believe to all these theories that I admit I make theory videos every now and then, but it's just me discussing as a fan. I still love Star Wars Episode 8, and I can't wait for the next Infinity War movie. I'm just saying that if you give fans today too much time to come up with theories, they're gonna ruin the experience for themselves. But I guess you can't be mad at Disney for doing that. You have to be mad at the fans. So, you know, don't theory craft. Don't come up with your own ideas and then get upset if it doesn't go the way you want it to be. Just be excited for the roller coaster of a movie that you get. A movie that took over 10 years to create. So those are my points. To recap, I love the movie. The movie was fantastic. I felt a little lied to, but I'm sure at the end of the day, it's gonna be fine and there'll be 2 standalone stories. Still, I don't like cliffhangers. Don't do it to me. But anyways, guys, now I want to talk to you guys in the comments below. I've already posted some questions already in this episode, but now I'm coming to you and I want to talk to you. Let's discuss in the comments what you thought of Avengers Infinity War. Do you feel like it's going to be a part 1 and part 2? Do you think that they'll still go back and do part 1, part 2? Nah, they're gonna call it something completely different. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And like I said before, if you haven't already, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, hit the notifications. I'm doing more videos on this channel every single week. I'm trying to do at least 3 videos and talking about the news in movies, games, comic books, all things nerdy and geeky. So let's have a good time. Until the next time, I'll see you later.